I would like to thank everyone for coming to our webinar. This series of webinars that we're presenting, Back to Business, are just some of the insights that we've been giving to our clients as they've been trying to navigate some of the uncharted waters that we, have found ourselves in with the coronavirus pandemic and all the things that have been happening here in 2020. The webinar today is entitled Survive. So finding and maintaining stability during a storm. This is the second one. And we've been doing several webinars, and this is number 2 out of 4 in this series. So we're going to be talking today about what to do if you find that you are just surviving. So a little bit about me. My name is Hugh Fireball. I am the Director of Brand Insights. I have 20 years of experience in strategy, branding, and creative. I've been doing this for a while, and I work a lot of times with clients who are at what we call key moments in growth or transition. A lot of times we work with clients as they are going through a merger, an acquisition, a product launch, a rebranding, some of these key moments that may be happening in your business and your brand that we work with alongside our clients with. And I do a lot of workshops, branding workshops and marketing workshops, and then also some speaking in the area. I'm also the local president and the state governor of the American Advertising Federation. So that's a little bit about me. I work at Able&Co. We are a small marketing and communications firm located in the Briar Creek area of Raleigh, but we have clients that are nationwide and global, actually. So we get a lot of fun things to work on here. So the question of the day is: are you surviving or are you thriving? And nobody was truly prepared for the COVID pandemic. People had contingency plans, they had ideas, but nothing could really touch this. But we found that right now, the businesses that are making it, there are those who are surviving and they need a lifeline, and then there are those who are thriving, and what they need is really a plan. So we're going to take a quick minute, and I am going to ask a poll. So I am relaunching this poll right now. So you will get some questions popping up, and if you could just answer those 2 questions. One is about is your organization surviving or thriving? And then the other is, what aspects of just surviving have you experienced? So of the companies that are surviving or thriving, we are about half and half. 43% say that they are surviving, 43% say they're thriving, and then 14% say that they're about halfway between. So some of the things that you may have experienced, and we're going to go through these. You may have experienced a reduction in business in your customers or traffic. 29% of you said that you did. You may have found that you're having to rely heavily on loans, and just 14% of you said that you did, but we see a lot of people who are surviving having to rely on their loans, those PP loans, just to make ends meet, or they may have rocky finances. You may have had big projects that have been paused or canceled. So something that was on the horizon, your client may have called and said, you know what, we're just going to hold on that. Or perhaps it was a large initiative you had planned, new openings, those things that ended up being either put on hold or canceled. That's one of the signs of the times. Another thing you may be experiencing is reduced staff or reduced resources due to supply chain challenges. And so in some cases, that may make your business feel like it is just barely surviving day to day, just planning from one day to the next. We see that in some cases you may have had to close or halt production or halt innovation. Luckily, no one on here seems like they had any real closures or halting of their production. But that's something that definitely people who are surviving during this time are experiencing. And then another thing that they may be experiencing is no long-term plan. COVID came and their plans just went out the window. And so now they're just waiting to go day to day. And one of the things is that we see people kind of coming to us and saying is that, like, well, when this all blows over, or when this ends. And one of the things that we've been advising our clients and others is that it's not going to ever be this switch. There's never going to be this moment when suddenly everything ends and it's back to normal. Instead, it's kind of like, I like to use the metaphor of the frog that's boiling in the pot. It's kind of just going to change over time. And one day you're going to look back and say, wow, this is really different. And so people who just decided to stop in their tracks, companies that have just decided to stop in their tracks, and we're just going to live day to day and see how this comes, you're going to find it hard to see when that endpoint is, when you can get back to normal. So one of the things that we see is if people aren't having that long-term plan and aren't changing their plans up, that's one of the aspects of surviving. So what you do need to be thinking about right now is, how do you focus and what should you be focusing on? And this webinar, in order to kind of break it up, we've looked at 5 different places where we think you should focus. And the first is your brand, focusing on that brand, focusing on your audience and bringing that audience into focus, your messaging. You may need to focus your offering, which are your goods and your services, and then also bringing a real focus to your marketing. So let's delve into these and let's talk a little bit about each of these in the next half hour. So focusing your brand. Now, one of the things that may happen in this time, if you're surviving, it's very easy for you to think, okay, I just need to get messages out. I just need to put things out into the world. And whether you don't have an in-house marketing team, or whether perhaps, you don't have those, those design staff members at your disposal, everybody's just thinking, we'll just get it out. We'll just get it out. But if you're not keeping yourself on brand, you're really missing the opportunity during this time to supercharge what you're putting out into the world. So you want to make sure that you have that consistency of your brand and that repeatability of those key messages, those key phrases that people remember over time. This is going to help you to connect to your audience, those people who are familiar with you. It's going to help provide that sense of stability for your company and the feeling that your organization is being very stable. And it's also going to help to really get into people's minds and to dig into their minds. We know that brands live in the mind, and any type of repeatability and consistency helps to build that, that place in their mind share. It also is your differentiation and your positioning. It's very important to keep that in mind, especially as the competitive landscape is changing so rapidly. Your competitors are adding new services, or they're changing things up. You may find that some of your competitors have gone away, and other people who were not a competitor before have now entered your space. It's also about beginning to make sure you're keeping that long-term loyalty, whether that's with your current clients, in effect, or whether it's in building new clients as people come to you. Having that brand at the central core part of your message and of what you're putting out into the world helps them have that central, kind of that North Star that they can come to. You also want people to understand your values and your promise. What does your brand stand for? What are you promising to the consumer? Again, that helps to position you and helps to give you a sense of differentiation. Also, now what you stand for and that why that why you exist and why you're in business, those things are helping right now because everyone is looking for companies that have some empathy, that are showing how they're reacting. And so being able to put your promise and your values out into the world is extremely important at this time. So the second area of focus is your audience. Now, it may seem counterintuitive to focus your audience at this time. A lot of people who maybe are surviving are thinking, I just need to get people through the door. But what you really want to do is look at your audience and target, target, target. That is the way that you're going to make sure that your efforts are going on the most fruitful ground. So the first place obviously are your current customers. We know that the common wisdom says that it is 5 times more difficult and expensive to bring in a new customer than it is to retain an existing customer. Increasing your customer retention by just 5% can actually increase your profits, as much as 25 or 50%. And the success rate for selling to clients you already have, people you already have a relationship, is about 60 to 70%, whereas getting a new client is all the way down to 5 to 20%. So we really want to look at your current customers and how to retain them and how to build loyalty. Another thing is to look at your current customer base and consider that your unique buying tribe. The unique buying tribe concept is something that I love to talk about when I'm working in a brand workshop with my clients. It is the idea that in earlier days, we really focused on what your unique selling proposition is. And then later, there was a shift where we started to look at buying tribes, understanding that core audience and what it is that they want, how they consume your brand, how they consume your marketing, and then working straight towards them, being what they need. Because as you move through time, having that unique buying tribe is a lot more defensible than having a unique selling proposition that is constantly under attack from outside sources. And so to do that, you want to understand the demographics of your current customers and the psychographics. Now, this means going in and just doing a little bit of research, understanding exactly how your audience breaks down. If you've done this, great, you already know exactly who your target audience is. If you've never really taken a look at who your customer base is, now is the perfect time to do it. Go through, analyze, what kind of demographics do I typically reach? What are those psychographics? Now, psychographics are something that we layer on top of demographics. Demographics are things like age, income, location, all of those kind of facts and figures about your audience. The psychographics are, how do they react? How do they consume media? How do they like to buy? What are their buying habits? How do they think? Layering that on is very important. And then what we can do at that time is do a look-alike search, meaning that you're able to take those demographics and those psychographics and find those birds of a feather that are going to flock together. That is going to be your most successful place if you're looking for new business, is to replicate who you have already found success with. So when you target your audience and focus it in and come up with a narrower audience that is going to give you more success, not only are your marketing efforts going to give you better results, but you're also going to be able to look at ways to make your budget work a little harder and get a little more bang for your buck. So that way, it may mean if you need to short your budget, that it's going to still yield the correct numbers that you need, or if you're going to maintain your budget, it allows you to get even more impact. So the next question, or the next section we're going to talk about, is focusing your message. So in times like this, it is crucial that you are as clear as possible. Clarity becomes the absolute necessity. So the things that you're going to want to be clear about are your benefits and your differentiation. So again, like we said, when you have that targeted buying tribe, when you've targeted your audience, you're able to focus your message and what your benefits are in a very clear way, because you know exactly who you're talking to, you've done the research, you know exactly what they want, and so you're able to speak directly to your audience. So you want to be very clear about what your benefits are. Now is not the time to be coy. If you're running a promotion, make sure it's simple. A lot of times when we're in you know, a more flush financial time, we may experiment around with things that maybe feel a little more creative or interesting, but right now is the time for simplicity when it comes to promotions. So these multi-tiered promotional ideas, focus that down. It's things like, you know, a coupon. You'll be amazed at how well a coupon will work. Or it's perhaps, you know, a percentage off, or free training if you're in more of a service type industry. There are all sorts of things you can do, but having that one very clear nugget is extremely helpful. Making your calls to action very clear is also important. A lot of times we like to just be kind of like, oh, well, the website's on there or the phone number's on there. Now is the time when you want to say, call so-and-so to set up your appointment, or book your reservation here, or any of those types of calls to action that are extraordinarily clear. So a lot of businesses, you know, the B2C companies, they know this. They have to do this in order to survive. B2B companies, for instance, they're sometimes a little more coy about trying to ask for that sale. And so we want you to make sure you've got very easy and clear calls to action. Again, like I mentioned, you want to have a clear brand alliance. You really want to make sure that your brand is coming across in a very strong and clear way that everybody knows it's from you and what that means. And then another thing you want to do, and we've had a lot of questions about this from our clients, is it okay to sell? Is it okay to come out with a strong sales message? It is, as long as you are balancing that message with empathy. As long as you're putting out a message that says, we do care, but obviously that has to be kept within balance. Now's the time to begin to shift back to a selling language. People who, you know, we can all think about our inboxes being flooded by every candle company that wants to care for us in these unprecedented times. And while that's important to have that language as part of your message, now is the time to bring back in sales language and to balance that alongside your empathy. All right, so the next thing we want to talk about is focusing your offerings. And this is part of focusing your messaging, but it really is also in how you target your marketing efforts. So if you have a really broad base of goods or services that you are promoting, now is the time to narrow it down to 3 or 4, maybe even fewer, that you're promoting consistently. Look for those things that are the best sellers or your highest profit, those things that are going to bring in that cash flow that you need, whatever that goal is that you're trying to attain. Look at those, narrow down to 3 or 4 products, and then promote those consistently and fervently. The other products can be found, you know, as people delve into your brand, but you really are wanting to highlight those. What are the things that are going to bring the best value to your client in this time? And this is the time to launch new services only if it's vital. Now, if you're in the Thrive bucket, now is a great time to be launching new services. It's a great time to be thinking about that. But if you're in the Survive bucket, only launch a new service if it's vital. So what's an example of that? Curbside service at restaurants. Many of them didn't have that, and they found themselves lagging behind, having to launch that service. So that is the time to fast track something that's going to help somebody meet a need. You see a lot of people trying to finally come in with technology that allows them to have a better online presence because it was vital. So those things that are vital, you want to bring those in and then put those to the top of your promotion, because those things are going to help generate that traffic. So that needs to be definitely tier number 1. And then it kind of goes without saying, but you have to make sure during this time that you're ensuring the highest quality and service. I think we probably have all had experiences over the past 6 months where we've had service or a quality or a customer experience that was less than perfect. And the first couple of times, I think we all probably said, okay, it's a pandemic, we get it. But after that, I know that I've certainly had experiences where I'm like, is this company just using this as an excuse to cover up bad service. And so you want to make sure that you're above that, that you have absolutely the best quality and the best service at this time, so that those clients and customers that you're trying to retain don't have a reason to go anywhere else. And those clients and customers that are trying you out during this time, they have a reason to just stop looking. They found exactly what they're looking for. So it's important as we're focusing our offerings to keep these things in consideration. The next thing we want you to think about is focusing that marketing plan. So now this is where it all starts to come together with your marketing, is whether or not you've ever had that long-term plan, that long-term strategic marketing plan. Now is the time to look at a short-term plan and have some short-term goals. Because if you're looking at spending all of your time looking at just the long play or the long picture and not looking at these short-term goals, then you may find yourself continuing to struggle. So the first thing you're going to want to do is define your objectives. So what are we trying to achieve in this 90 days? Is it revenue? Is it leads? Do we need to make a sale? What are we trying to achieve? And then don't reduce, but reallocate those budgets. So now that we've gone through and we've figured out what the clarity of our brand is, what our targeted audience is, what our targeted services and goods are going to be, and how that a very clear message is, now you should have a very narrow band to reallocate your budget into. And it's not as much about finding the right tactics as it is about finding the right audience, the right message, and keeping it on brand and being clear. Now, there are certainly some tactics that we're going to talk a little bit about, but there is no magic bullet. And right now, content is everything. People are consuming more and more content, whether that content is written, whether it's video, whether it's gamification. There are all these things that you should be considering for your brand and for your marketing that people are participating in more. And so just having the same old is not good enough anymore. So make sure that you're thinking, okay, what type of content can I put out? If I am for instance, a destination, how can I give video tours like daily or weekly, walk through, even if it's just, with my phone and say, hey, this is our destination. Or if you're a restaurant saying, hey, this is how we prepare this, and this is how you can prepare this, come pick up this kit, and then you can prepare this at home. It's about providing that content and putting it out into the world so that people are interacting with your brand. And then, as we were talking about earlier, you really need to ramp up those technical solutions. If you were late to the party and offering virtual or offering video or offering online services, you're having to catch up. And so you really want to make sure that those technical solutions are in place and are running seamlessly. So those are all places to look at reallocating that budget. So everybody wants to know, what should I be doing? Should I be doing social? Should I be doing video? And there's no magic bullet. I know everybody wants to know what that magic bullet is, but those tactics should really align to your objectives. So when we're working with our clients, we go through the short-term plan. We're always looking at what is in the short term and what is in the long term. And so right now, if we were advising our clients, we would be looking at that target audience, and we would be researching and saying, okay, your target audience may be 55 plus. And right now they are consuming a lot of this and this. And so we're going to put our efforts into that tactic, and we're going to shift there. So, maybe pulling some money out of search and putting it into social, or pulling your money out of some traditional print advertising and putting it more online. Those types of tactics, are things you should be considering. So this graph that I have here, it came from Visual Capitalist, and it's showing what the projected, that's the white, what the projected increase or decrease of spends on certain tactics were planned for 2020, and then what the other color is how COVID has affected that. So kind of that, you see that social media still is growing at a 9.8%, online video 5%, online display 2.1%. You know, but we see certain things that have dropped off. Cinema obviously has dropped all the way off the bottom. So you want to consider some of these things as you're looking at tactics. But here are a couple that, if you needed that, you know, quick idea of some things you should be looking at and researching for your marketing plan. I always like to advocate marketing automation. It's not really a tactic, it's more of an approach. But with limited resources and with you know, possibly a limited staff, automating some of your marketing helps it to be more consistent, helps it to be more driven. You get better insights. You're just able to do more with less effort by putting it onto an automated plan. Social media obviously has increased, and it's a great place to, you know, to be looking. You want to make sure you're having a conversation with your audience and not just putting out non-relevant content out into social media. You want to make sure that you're really just kind of using that to get the pulse of your audience, as well as putting out content. Video and virtual, we've all seen the rise of a lot of virtual tours. We work a lot with real estate organizations and destination marketing, and so we've you know, definitely seen the rise and advocated even more virtual tours, whether that's using something like a Matterport, or whether that is a sales agent walking through, or doing a virtual open house. We've utilized a lot of that. But then if you don't have that, videos, especially with your leadership, you know, connecting your brand, making your brand personal, featuring clients, featuring testimonials, all of those things, they're a little bit more engaging and entertaining. You know, online media, you know, obviously people are consuming more media through, you know, streaming services, whether that is, you know, they're listening to the Pandora or they're listening to Spotify. Utilizing the ads on that is a good place to look. And a couple of other tips that you want to think about are updating that digital footprint. And by that, I mean your website, I mean your Google listing, I mean all of those things. A lot of people, I go, you know, searching and it says, oh, they're open. And then you know, of course they're not open, or they have changed their hours, and nobody's updating it because, as I said in the beginning, everyone's thinking, well, this is all going to blow over, and then I'm just going to have to change it back. Well, the response to that is when it blows over, a lot of the things that you should be changing on your website now or on your digital footprint now are going to be retained. So the new normal is not going to look like the old normal. And so you should be updating these things on a regular basis. It's not enough just to throw up the little COVID splash that says, you know, in these times we're making sure that's not enough anymore. Now is the time to move on, update your site, and talk about it head on. One-to-one marketing efforts that you could put into place. So that might be your digitally, that might be a direct email. In print, that could be direct mail. Don't count direct mail out with all of the on-screen kind of fatigue that we're having. A lot of people just really love to get that piece in their mail still, and especially if your targeted demographic is going to be in the 55 plus or another demographic. It's just good to have that, that idea. And that kind of leads me into how, depending on, again, like I said, your objectives, your audience, and your marketing plan, you may want to consider staying in one of these traditional medias, simply because as people are leaving that in droves, if it applies specifically to your situation, now is the time that that may become what we call a blue ocean. Because there's not as much activity happening there, and so it allows you to stand out. And plus, you have a chance of maybe getting some really good deals in some traditional media areas. So explore those, but that should just be a small portion of it. Again, just to reiterate, there's no magic bullet in any of these things that we just discussed. It's just about having that short-term plan and really tooling that in. If you would like to talk to one of us a little bit more about that type of plan or how these tactics could work with you, we would just love for you to reach out to us. So just to review what we talked about as far as our 5 focus areas. You want to make sure that your brand is always at the forefront. It's always at the foundation of what you do, and that messaging comes through very clearly. You want to target that audience. Now's not the time to go broad. It's the time to go very targeted, so that you are hitting your core buying tribe, your unique buying tribe directly. You want to focus your messaging. Don't try to be all things to all people. Don't try to say everything all in one place. Trim it down. Those very clear points of differentiation, those very clear calls to action. Just keep it very trim and moving forward. You may want to trim down your offering, focus on just those 2 or 3 goods or services that you offer that are your make your biggest impact, and then focusing that marketing on tactics that are going to work for you. So if you've got a really broad approach, maybe narrowing that in to make those budgets work really well towards that targeted audience and targeted messaging that we have. So that's just to review. So before we go into questions, hopefully you've been typing in questions if you've had them. And if you have one, I would love for you to go ahead and type that in right now. But I just want to give you a little bit of an overview. So we do have additional webinars in this series. Our first one was Realign from Business to Usual in the Next Normal. So that was speaking mainly to how to use your brand internally to bring your teams together to prepare for this. Survive is today. Thrive we'll be having in 2 weeks on the 28th. And that is all about companies who are right now find themselves thriving. And how do you maximize that? How do you take advantage of the fact that your sales are remaining level or even going up? We've seen a lot of that in real estate. How do you make sure that you're staying connected with those clients? And then pivot. Is now a time to look at a rebrand? And it may seem crazy, but we find that usually during big times of change like this is a really great chance to take a good look and evaluate your brand and maybe consider making a pivot or a change. You can visit us at theableagency.com/insights for more content, for blogs, for webinars, for speaking topics. And then a little bit about this webinar. It's going to be available online in 2 to 3 business days. Once I go through and edit everything, we'll put it in. And those of you who are on this call and have registered for this webinar, you'll get an email with a direct link to that YouTube clip. If you would like any of this information, my deck or my notes, all you have to do is send me an email at hugh@theableagency.com, and I can share those assets with you. And then just keep us in mind for speaking and workshops and any insights. So I'm going to go to questions. I have one. So Michael asks, do you have any tips on messaging and pivoting your voice to adapt to the new normal without losing your brand identity? So yes, so what you're going to want to do is look at the core aspects of your brand and look for those key areas where you may find kind of synergy with what's going on right now. So for instance, if you have one of your core brand values may be service, then you can speak about how service is part of your core identity, and that means that you're reaching out to the community. That means you're doing these things. You want to look for ways that you're engaging that align with your brand, that align with what is at the core of what people know you for. Are there any other questions? Okay. Alrighty, well then, if that is everything, I would like to thank all of the participants for being on this call. I have one thing in chat. Let me look there real quick. Okay, so thanks, Tiffany. She says she's going to be using Blue Ocean, and yep, just suggested some direct mail to her team. It's a great way to overcome screen fatigue. Right now, we're all, spending so much time on screens, sometimes seeing that print thing. It's a Blue Ocean. It gives you that chance. It's a place to go where you, there's just not as much traffic at this time. So that's awesome to hear. Any other comments or questions? Okay, well, it was great having you here, and I look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.